Hey guys, Bido here to tell you about the latest from Blind Channel, Exit Emotions, out March 1st on Century Media Records. The album has 12 tracks, 35 minutes in length, and this is the band's fifth full-length studio album. They are a Finnish pop rock metal band. From a design standpoint, this album offered me an interesting duality. On one hand, I felt like the record fell in line with all of its predecessors, an album that feels like a compilation where the individuality of the songs really comes into the forefront, and it's really easy to see and detect what makes these songs different from one another. That's always been a characteristic of their records, and it's no different on this album. But it's not as noticeable as on previous records, because this album has a little bit more consistency within the sound, and that allows the songs to not feel as far apart, and allows the record, while not necessarily offering a journey, it does offer a roller coaster ride of ebbs and flows from start to finish. Having 12 songs and being 35 minutes in length doesn't hurt. That actually improves the playability of the record and makes the album easier to digest, and allows the listener not to feel bored that the record kind of repeats itself. It's a record that stays fresh, and that gives it that playability that once you get to the end, you're ready to re-engage with the record and go back to the beginning and playing it all over again. I think this is a great attribute to have on any record, but on this album, they achieve that goal extremely well by not just creating a sound that leans itself into it, but by having a structured design and overall length that enhances it. As far as that sound is concerned, the heaviness of this record is the biggest surprise. This is their heaviest album to date. It really has this thick guitar sound, heavy riffing that becomes the common denominator on every single track. That's a little bit of the glue that brings those songs together. Even though they have a lot of differences between them, that becomes definitely that common denominator that allows you to see the sequence from track to track, even though sometimes it's hard to find the path in between them. But that is the main ingredient, the main new ingredient that the sound of this album offers. The other new element of this record that is tied in with that heavier sound is the fact that this album sounds more North American. It sounds more modern. It sounds more like the scene that's really flourishing in North America right now, with bands like Ice Nine Kills, From Ashes to New, and I Prevail. Some of these have been around for a very long time, but right now they're finding their way within the overall metal scene, and the sound that they provide, the essence that they create, is becoming bigger and bigger, with bands like Bad Omens as well. That's another great example. And I felt like this album really took pieces of what those bands are doing so well, which is creating this very specific North American sound. Not to say that there aren't European bands that have similar attributes, but I find that when you listen to the production on this record, when you listen to the songs on this record, when you see the designs of the songs, the way they're presented, the dynamics that exist within them, I feel like you see a lot more of that in this part of the world than anywhere else. And then they bring in their own DNA, they bring in their own ability to create really hooky and catchy choruses like nobody's business. Like, these guys have that incredible ability to know exactly what the song needs from a chorus standpoint in order to give it more of a pop feel, in order to give it more of a pop rock experience that brings these songs into that arena rock level in terms of how catchy, how hooky, how melodic, and how big they are. Every single track on this album offers that sort of experience. They captured it really well throughout the entire album, all 12 songs, adding that to that more North American sound with metalcore influences, new metal influences, hip-hop influences, bringing them all, mixing them all together, creating the Blind Channel sound and DNA that they've been crafting over 4 previous records, and now infusing more heaviness into it allows them to take this album into a different plateau. It really changes your perception of the band. This is an album that changes how you see the band, how you view the band, but I feel like this sound, this production, this essence also opens a lot of doors for them in order to move into a different market, in order to move into a different fan base, if you will, or expand their fan base into other parts of the world outside of Finland. It has more of a mass appeal, specifically when you're talking about a North American market. I honestly felt like the sound was very geared towards that, the production, sound, execution, overall design, and then, like I said, with the band's own DNA, which is perhaps better represented in those choruses. Now, when you start to look at the elements, I mentioned the guitars, that's definitely one that stands out, but the drums as well. But going back to the guitars, I really felt like the guitar sound on this album was something that had been brewing in previous records. I don't think they ever pushed the envelope as far as they did on this album, obviously this being their heaviest, but it's been there. At least we've gotten to see a glimpse of it across previous albums. It's just never been there consistently, not only consistently within a song, but consistently throughout an entire album. On this record, we're able to see more of their metal chops, and we definitely see that on the guitar side, but also on the drums. The drums on this record have great warmth, great depth. They give an interesting foundation to the record. They're not necessarily adding heaviness to the album, but they're adding texture to the album. They're making the sound feel more complete. They're making the sound feel more organic. Still a record that has a lot of electronic elements mixed into the overall experience, but on this album I felt like there were more there for spice, to add on texture, to add on depth, to create layers, and not necessarily to drive the songs or to make the songs easier to digest and easier to listen to. It's using an element that's familiar to the band, but using it to a different extent. This allows the drums to feel like they have a little bit more soul. This is an album that gives the drums a little bit more soul, and then when you have that from the drums, when you have that heaviness from the guitars, that elevates the overall volume of the album, and that's where you get that heaviness that this record puts forward. Vocally, it's as strong as any other album. They have great vocals. They really know how to use their different abilities, their different dynamics, interacting really well within songs from song to song, mixing in clean vocals, harsh vocals, rapping. All of those elements add great movement to the songs and give great life to the tracks as well. They really bring the songs to life. They bring the lyrics to life. And I thought on this album, the diversity of approach, the diversity of execution was really well thought out in order to get the most out of the songs, in order to get the most out of the emotion that's buried in within these tracks. This is a very emotional record. At least to me, it feels like one of their most emotional driven records to date as well, and having that ability to offer different styles, different approaches, really enhances it, and once again bringing it to the forefront. There's not much more I can say about this album besides what I already said, and I have to emphasize that this is their heaviest record, and not because of that, but it is my favorite album from Blind Channel. I think it's their most crafted, their most mature, the album where I feel like the songs had better songwriting behind it, better lyrics, they flew better, they had a better understanding of where they were, where they needed to go, overall being a more mature experience all around. And it definitely showcases what they've learned over the years, touring, performing. They're a band that's just getting better and better with every single record, and this one is definitely showcasing the plateau that they've reached right now. A band with a lot of talent putting it all together on a single album. As far as favorite songs are concerned, I want to start off with Where's the Exit. This is the opening track on the album. Heavy guitars with a lot of distortion sets the tone for the rest of the record. When you start off an album with a song like this, with the heaviness that it brings, the experience that you get out of the vocals, the backing vocals, making the song super dynamic, very intense, and then having that heaviness in the background that it's noticeable more so in the verses, allowing that pop rock feel to come in the chorus, which is the DNA of the band, but it's the DNA of the band turned all the way to 11 with that heaviness behind it. This sets the tone. Being the opening song, you start to feel like, wow, if this is this track that we get started with, what's next? What is this album going to offer me? So I felt like this was one of those songs that has all the right ingredients. It touches on the title of the album. It showcases the heaviness. It showcases the dynamic vocal style, vocal approach that you're going to see throughout the record. It showcases the more mature songwriting. It showcases the catchy and hooky choruses that they're known for. So it's a song that really encompasses not just what the band has been, but what the band is currently on this album. Next we have XOXO. This track features From Ashes to New, and it brings more of that rap style vocals into the forefront, which fits really well with the sound, with the design, and even with the feature. I feel like this was a song that was really created for this feature. It still has that heavy guitar sound, that it's still there. It still pushes a little bit more of a melodic chorus vibe, which is also important in order for you to get that heaviness to still linger through and still be there and still be a main ingredient of the song. It's a little bit of hip-hop meets new metal meets metalcore. It's a track that doesn't have one defined genre. It rather blends them all in and creates a very unique song, a song that works really well for both bands performing in it. Last but not least, my favorite song on this album, Phobia. It opens up so softly, almost like a ballad, both musically and vocally, and then it builds up towards the chorus. You start to see the song getting bigger, more volume, some heaviness coming in. Then the chorus hits. The chorus is super melodic. It has this memorable sound to it, almost arena rock feel to it. And then the second verses is heavier than the first one, continue to build up towards that chorus. It's a song that with each verse, the track gets bigger and heavier, more sound, more volume, more larger than life, and then always with the right chorus to really emphasize that, to give that more dynamic, melodic vibe with great vocals, great delivery. So it's a song that really stands out from the growth that it offers, the changes that it offers, the different influences that it offers, with that outstanding chorus really becoming the glue that brings it all together. This is it, Blind Channel, Exit Emotions, out March 1st on Century Media Records. Let me know your thoughts on the band, on the singles, and I'll see you all at the next video.